Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Change Your Mind podcast. I'm your host, Kris Ashley, and I am so excited for my guest today, and I can't wait for you to hear all the amazing things he's going to say as well. Hi, I'm Kris. When I was younger, I went through trauma that caused me to feel broken and lost. But my life changed after I had a spiritual awakening. Since then, I've dedicated my life to studying and learning from masters all around the world that have helped me to create a life of fulfillment and abundance beyond my wildest dreams. Now I'm dedicated to sharing everything I've learned so that you don't have to suffer for decades like I did. I've seen people's lives completely transform, and I share it all right here. So I have Krishnanand with me. Krishnanand, I would love for you to just tell us a little bit about who you are. What's your bio for listeners who might not have ever heard of you before?
Sure. Well, I became a spiritual mystic when I was a child.
Wow.
So, and I was pretty intensely involved. It wasn't just a hobby for me. From early on, I was studying. I was a scholar. I was kind of advanced in school and things like that. So I had a good intellect, and so I was always drawn to not academic things. I was drawn to spiritual and mystical things, and so I became something of an expert in them by the time I was in my late teens. So I wasn't just scholarly learning and studying them. I wanted to know more and more and more. I could not. I'm a knowledge addict, and I want the deep things, and I want more of it, and I want whatever I find. I'm like, I want to go down the rabbit hole. I want to go even deeper. So I want to go to the origins of it, the source, the truth of it, and then also I want to put it to use. I want to practice it. So I meet a lot of people throughout my life that they want the knowledge and they want the theories and they enjoy that, and we all get high off it. I mean, it gives you like an endorphin rush, you know. But people don't. Then people start to wonder why they're not progressing spiritually, and that's why I've kind of what I've been doing for many years now is that I say because you're getting knowledge, but you're not putting it into practice. You can't sign up at the gym. You actually got to go and lift some weights and do some stuff, you know. So it's about putting it to use, and so all my spiritual work and studies was put to use. I wasn't just drawn to alchemy. I became a master alchemist. And I mean a laboratory in my house where I almost blew the whole thing up. Okay? And I was making stuff. Yeah, I was doing practical alchemy, spiritual alchemy, and I absolutely loved it. And same thing, as a bhakti yogi, I didn't just read the books. I went to India. I went on pilgrimages. I toured the country. I went through Nepal. I mean, I just went to the sacred sites, these places that many people never even heard of, and I spent time in there, and I sat and meditated in them and just absorbed what they were and studied them before I went and while I was there to get that experience and learn what the practices and methods were to develop spiritually and grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And then once you've been there and walked that path, it gives you so much more insight and ability to be able to help others along the journey too, right?
It does, and you just want more and more and more. And yes, of course, all spiritualists, I mean, anybody they find something that they're really into, you could say, that's having a profound effect on them, want to share with other people. And you got to kind of know when to and when not to, you know. But for sure, it's a bit of an addiction. The more I pilgrimaged to India and Egypt and around the world, the more I wanted it. The more I needed to do more and more and more. And then finally, I got to a place, after my NDE Express particularly, several years ago, and I'm like, you know what? I don't really need to travel or go anywhere anymore because I saw what I want to see. Like I've taken that in. Not that there isn't always more, but I've taken all the big truths, the eternal truths in, and now it's time to, and has been for some time now, to continue to write, to teach, to mentor for those who are having their dark night of the soul and lost themselves. And that's what it's all about, is that my dark night of the soul had gone on for most of my life. And enlightened masters and gurus and sages, not otherworldly beings from other celestial places. I'm saying literally Buddhas and sages that walk this planet in physical form, you know? And so they give us all these teachings. And so being able to have guidance from that, and I'm like, well, what about the people that don't have that? I'm not one of those, but maybe I can show them what they showed me.
I love that so much. And I've been on a similar journey. You're a truth seeker like I am. And like you said, you get addicted to it and you just want more and more. And I like to say it's like every new teacher that I find is like a new door opening in an unending hallway. Like you just get hooked. And no, I love that so much. And I relate to that so much. And I love that you're teaching others.
This is why my reference to my death experience and what I travel to within the portal is about the in-between state between life and death. And that's where I was during my coma. That's where I visit regularly now. It's been ongoing for many years. And so I refer to the spiritual presences that are within the portal as Akashic agents. You know, the Akashic records.
Yeah.
So the Akashic records, again, there's that addiction. We want Akashic records has all the true knowledge, all the essential truths, all the eternal truth. Everything is there, past, present, and future. And so we want to connect to that. And, you know, and again, it's not just that you just want more. Like eventually you get to a point where you will not settle. You can recognize the shit from the shine, and you can wade through it, and you can get the right stuff. And that's the thing is, even since I was young, I was very cautious and very passionate, very angry in sometimes when I was younger, that I sensed that so much of what people were teaching were not the right stuff. And I kind of followed my intuition and instinct, and again, went down those rabbit holes, kept searching and searching and searching, and made sure that I was finding the eternal truth, not somebody's version of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like what you said too, is that like you can take all of these truths that you've learned and synthesize them, because not everyone is geeking out like you and I are, right? Not everyone is reading all the books and going on the pilgrimages and studying under teachers. So you can bring that knowledge to people that aren't doing that.
That's my style is, yeah. I have been, since I was very young, been able to communicate things that are very hard for many people to understand in ways that are accessible to them. I'm kind of come from both levels. I have this high intellect, but at the same time, I'm just an old street waif, homeless dope fiend that used to live on the streets. And I'm just live a rough life. So I kind of come from both areas, so I can communicate to both.
Okay, so I wanna talk about all of that first before we get into your near-death experience and all of that. So first, I want to know, you started all of this quest as a child, which is so unique. You know, most people don't find spirituality or mysticism until they're much older. So what was it about your childhood? Were you exposed to it? Was your family into it? Like what set that spark?
Hold on to your head here, because it's going to get a little wild.
I love it.
So
get it wild.
My first near-death experience was at birth. I was born a nuchal baby, quarter around my neck. A nuchal baby, quarter around my neck. So I was born basically dead. They revived me instantly. And so I didn't know this until I started learning about NDE several years ago, that clearly what I had was NDE, because I had all of the side effects, features that come along with an NDE from the time I was born. So I'm not exaggerating. I'm not making things up. I don't know how to say it, but to say it. So by the time I'm like 2 and 3 years old, I'm looking at the world around me, looking at my parents and thinking, who are you people? You're not my parents. I don't know who my parents are, but you're not them. What are you all doing? Like, what is all this you're wasting time on? And I'm thinking, you better not. I mean, I was aware that I was having these very adult thoughts, and I'm like, I'm a baby. What's wrong with you? Like, how can you have these thoughts when you're a baby? What's going on? And so I learned to keep it very quiet as I learned to be able to talk. And so I was having these very high and deep thoughts, and I just figured I was crazy. And I figured early on, I was like, don't talk about it because people think you're crazy and they'll take you somewhere. I was like, how do you know that they take crazy people anywhere? You're a little baby. You're a child. And so I was already fathoming and wondering and seeking. So basically what it is called sanskars in the language of Sanskrit. Sanskars are basically your carryover tendencies and awarenesses. So most of your spiritual knowledge, when you learn it, you don't feel like you're learning it brand new at all, do you? You feel like you're remembering it.
Exactly.
Right? And that is because you did learn it. And so what we're doing is we're resurrecting those things that are already put in there from past lifetimes. And so we're able to access those, and again, in the Akashic records and within ourselves. And so that's what it was. I was pursuing it from the time I was a very young child. And then, of course, I had my first religious experience when I was 10, 11 years old. And I was very angry at the world. I'm like, these people are a bunch of hypocrites. All the war and all the bad stuff in the world is all in the name of God. And I'm like, what is wrong with these people? Right? And again, I'm still a kid, And so I began to really study theology and religion, not because I was into it, but because I wanted to debate these people in person and defeat them. And show them how wrong and hypocritical they were. I wanted to do it in person, and I did as a child to embarrass them. Right? That's not a very spiritual attitude either, though. And so, as I went deeper into spiritual knowledge and theology to learn how to debunk it, I found the truth. I found the eternal truths. I mean, the sage and guru Yeshua, Jesus, said, "Knock and ye shall find." seek and it shall be open to you. He doesn't say sit on your ass and wait for it. He says seek and ye shall find. And so as I sought, I continued to find.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah, and so I got into the occult when I was in my preteens, and again drawn to, of course, I was into Black Sabbath and all kinds of fun dark stuff, and that was kind of fun times. But my friends were into it kind of like as teenagers would be. But me, I'm like getting ingredients and potions and making things. I'm doing an alchemy lab. I'm making potions. I'm doing witchcraft. I'm doing spells. I'm doing incantations. I'm not doing anything evil. I'm doing things to elevate my consciousness because I'm intrigued by it, you know? So I'm practicing it. My friends are like, okay, you're a little bit too serious, you know? And I'm like, well, I thought we were like, yeah, this wasn't just like some kind of little happy thing to do on a Saturday afternoon, man. I'm into this stuff. You know, I want to know about it.
Yeah.
And so I continued to develop that. And so then by the time I was in my 20s, had my first Kundalini event, which is a major one, full-blown Kundalini. And then as I got into ceremonial magic, became a third-degree ceremonial magician with the Ordo Templi Orientis. I became a master alchemist with Flamel College. My mentor was Dennis Hawk. I don't know if you know who that is, but he is probably the leading alchemist throughout the world in these last several generations. He's up, and he was my personal mentor. And you know why? Because I demanded. I met him and I said, I'm only taking this course if you become my personal mentor. He goes, I don't do that. I tour and I lecture and I write. I don't do it. I said, that's the only way. He goes, you drive a hard bargain. You got it.
Amazing. I love that. See, for listeners, I talk about this all the time. You have to take action, right? You have to step outside of your comfort zone and advocate for yourself. That's how things happen.
Seek and ye shall find. Yeah, not
exactly.
And the main thing is not just physically go out there and look. You've got to, from your heart, wish it and will it and desire and draw it to you. Yeah. And so that's the thing is when I feel something, when I long for something spiritual, it's not just a like or a desire. It becomes overwhelming. Like I can't breathe anymore. I can't think. I can't feel and I'm begging and pleading and demanding spiritual forces. I'm saying, I'm not begging. I'm not praying. I'm not asking. I'm demanding you come to me in my life now.
Yeah. You won't take no for an answer. There's no doubt in your mind. I love it. So just for listeners who don't know much about alchemy, can you just really quickly just give a little rundown on alchemy? What do you do with it?
On the surface level, what most people would understand is that it's about turning lead into gold.
Right.
Okay. And there is a practical alchemy. That's a whole one school. Practical alchemy is the potions, the tinctures, the ointments, the elixirs, and all the things that you make to be able to sustain health and all these other things. And you do it in a magical way. In other words, you do it with astrology, you do it with a whole bunch of other mystical properties so that it's synthesized with all of the forces that are out there. But then there's spiritual alchemy. And spiritual alchemy is the true alchemy. And it is about lead into gold. It's about the leaden, dross spirit of the human material mind to be transformed into spiritual consciousness of gold. So the lead is the human experience and the gold is the spiritual experience. So what alchemy describes, it's Hermetic, and so it's ancient Egypt, it's before that, and it's 7 stages. Sound familiar? 7 chakras. So we see this again and again and again, 7 notes on the musical scale. So there's 7 stages where you're basically taking yourself from where you are and you're eliminating and you're destroying everything that you know about yourself, your ego, your desires and all that, and you're basically rebuilding it from scratch. It's very intense. So all the yoga systems the same way. Chakra yoga, Kundalini yoga, Tantra yoga, all paths of yoga really are about destroying yourself, your ego self, and being able to be reborn and transformed. So alchemy is about that. And that is the Western version, I call it the Western version of yoga. And so mental yoga, not the movement yoga. And so it's the Western Hermetic version of that. And as the Sanskrit eternal truth, Sanatan Dharma, traveled from the Far East or the East or in India to the West in ancient times, it became Judaism, it became Kabbalah, it became alchemy, it became all these things, and it just slowly got a little bit changed around. Not changed as indifferent as in a bad way. It's cultural. You know, people have to use different analogies, different ways of teaching and practicing because they're in a different region, you know? And so it kind of modifies a little bit, and that's what it is. So all these paths, what I teach in my books and all my work is that I'm showing the unity of these things, not the separateness, how they're alike. And they're all teaching us one thing, spiritual consciousness, divine love consciousness.
I love that you said that because I was just going to ask you that. You've studied all these paths and gone to all these places, and is there one that you're more drawn to, or are you just seeing the similarities in all of them and how they're all connected?
Kris, that is a fantastic question that I don't get asked enough. I mean, I wish it was always been asked, because every once in a while someone will ask me, so you're a master, you're not a master, expert in all these paths, which one do you use? Do you use them all? And you can't, because the bottom line is, if you want to succeed at something, anything in life, you got to be exclusive to it. You can't just do it half-assed, right? You got to be completely committed to it, right?
Right.
Whether you're passing a test or driving a car, if you're not paying full attention and doing it committed completely to it, then something bad is going to happen. Spirituality is no different. And so we do have to select a path that suits us particularly. So me personally, I gain, and I've always benefited from having knowledge of all of them, seeing how they all synthesize together. But ultimately, I see one set of eternal truths. And so I do advise my clients. I don't say, look, you got to follow my path, which for me is Bhakti Yoga. Okay. I'm not saying you got to follow my path. I did Kundalini yoga and I had profound experience, all these kind of things. What I do with my students and clients is I say, listen, let's talk for a while. Let's find out which is the path that's going to suit you for a while. Now, I did all these things, and I wasn't just messing around. Again, it wasn't just because I couldn't make up my mind. It's I was drawn to each one. So basically, I feel like with Western organized religion, I started in kindergarten, and then I moved up to intermediate, and I went to middle school, and I went to some of the occult and mysticism, and then I graduated into college, and I went into some of the Eastern paths. Then I went postgraduate and went into the high forms of Bhakti Yoga.
All right, so Bhakti Yoga is your postgraduate.
I think it's a graduation prior. And again, that's really just about absolute just love. And I know it sounds corny, but I'm saying when you love the divine and you simply form a union with the divine.
Do you chant and sing and all the things too then?
I do. My daily meditation that I'm pretty regular with is, and it's usually twice a day, morning and evening. And so yes, I like kirtan. And these kirtans are not just submodes. There's Nam San Kirtan, which is just Jai Shridadhe. We hear Jai Rama, Jai Krishna, and the call and response. But what I like are called Pad Kirtans. Pad Kirtans have verses and tell stories, and they're beautiful and they're wonderful, and they get me absorbed in a story. Because otherwise, my mind just when I get bored, you know. So Nam San Kirtan, I love it, but I can't stay focused because my mind wanders. But Pad Kirtan has stories to it, has verses, and the one that I use are written by Rasic saints in India over thousands of years. So the original deals.
That's amazing. I've been to regular kirtans, but I had no idea that there was any other besides the call and response, and which are beautiful, by the way.
No, these are call and response. It's just the difference is that they're verses.
Okay.
So your Nam San Kirtan, Nam literally means name, and so Nam San Kirtan is Jai Rama, you're saying Ram's name, and then you respond with Jai Krishna, right? Shri Rama, Shri Krishna. So, that's a Nam San Kirtan. Pad San Kirtan, P-A-D, Pad San Kirtan is verses that tell stories. They're called Leelas. Leelas are the divine acts that saints and sages and avatars do when they're here.
It sounds beautiful. I'm going to have to go to one. That sounds amazing.
They're fun and they're wonderful. And again, the stories, sometimes they're funny, sometimes they're deep, sometimes they're intense, sometimes they're lonely, sometimes they're about longing. So that's cover a wide area.
Yeah. The other thing I love about Bhakti is the community too, right? Because you do it in community so often. For sure.
I just came back from living at the ashram. I'm living in an ashram in the US for about 3.5 years. And it was a Bhakti Yoga community. Yes. I say yoga, please forgive me. I say yoga because the true Sanskrit pronunciation is yoga. That's what I'm used to. So yoga is like a British affectation of it. So excuse me, I'm not deliberately saying it wrong. I'm saying I've been so used to saying it the correct way that it just comes out that way. I don't want people to think I don't know the difference.
No, thanks for clarifying that. As someone who owns a yoga studio, I appreciate that.
Okay, well, there you go. So
it's all about the asana for me.
Most of the words with the A after the end of the aspirated A is a British affectation of when they colonialized India, which they kind of they change everything around. So it's actually yog, it's actually karm, not karma, dharm, not dharma. Some words do have the aspirated A, but many of them don't.
Wow. Well, thanks for teaching me that. I'm learning so much from you. And there's so much more I want to talk about with you. Okay, so we talked about your childhood and your first near-death experience. And you mentioned you had a dark night of the soul where you were on the streets, maybe? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I mean, well, that wasn't the cause of it. I mean, I've been in a dark night of the soul kind of all my life because
Yeah.
I just don't want to be in the material world. I want to live in the
Yeah.
spiritual world. That's it.
They say that people who are here as like volunteers and who are here to like help raise the consciousness of humanity have a
Indigo
really hard time
children.
being here. What's that?
Indigo children.
Yeah. Yeah, and just any kind of volunteers have a hard time being here. It's like they don't want to be here because they're
That's
not
right.
no one's from here, but they just really want to go back home. There's like a homesickness, right?
That's
I
right.
feel
Yeah.
that.
Listen, dying was easy and being within the portal was great. Living is hard, and I have no desire to be in the material world. None.
Yeah.
And listen, I have adventurous life. I've been scuba diving around the world, skydiving. I ride a motorcycle. I have a great time. I've had great lovers. I have a good time in the material world. But at the same time, it's just no matter what you do, it's going to be temporary. It's going to be limited, and you're always going to. It doesn't feed your soul. The only thing that can feed your soul is spirit. And so I want my soul fed, not my body, my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about your near-death experience. Can you tell us what happened?
Sure. I was in my office as a private practice counselor, which I'd been working in this office for 7 years.
Okay.
Now, understand that again, I'm not some degree carrying therapist. I started from nothing, and I built a reputation just helping people to find through their dark night of the soul and resolve behavioral issues. And I became very successful at it because I really cared about what I did. That morning, I had 3 clients reschedule, send me a text, and that it happens, but not 3 in a row. And suddenly, I went from having booked back all day to having 3.5 hours to kill. And I'm like, what am I going to do? So I went on my motorcycle, which I rode to work that day. I got on it, and for the first time in 7 years in that office, I left to go up the street to get to the clinic to get a physical. And for the first time in 7 years, I turned right instead of left, and I don't know why. I will never know why. I
Huh.
never turned. The left turn was an easy, quiet side street into town, which I always took. The right turn was a busy boulevard with some intersections. To this day, I don't know why. That one day I did. And 2 blocks later, I had a left turn lane just for me with a green turn arrow, a little arrow just for me. And as I eased out to my turn, a full-size SUV went through the light, hit me in the face, killing me instantly. Now, miracle number 1. On one corner is a tire shop, and out front of that tire shop is a pastor on the phone. He's only there, which I found out just a couple years ago because I didn't know about this until somebody told me about him because my memory was gone. He was only there because his daughter kept nagging him to go with her to get tires on her car, and he reluctantly went. He saw the accident happen, was on his cell phone, and thought, oh my God, God put me here for a reason today. And he rushed over, and he was the first one to pull my body out from under the wreck. Excuse the emotions. It's not the trauma, Kris. It's when I think of somebody having to see this and witness this and be worried and concerned. I don't want to be a source of pain to anybody. And from that moment, I'm a source of pain. He pulled me from the wreck, and I'm bleeding from my eyes, my nose, my mouth, and my ears, and I'm dead. He reads me my last rites. He begins chanting and reading my last rites on the street. On the other corner is a Jack in the Box restaurant. Okay? At the front of the drive-thru line are 2 paramedics getting lunch. Had they been in the back of that line, I wouldn't be here. Had they won tacos instead of burgers that day, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
They're on the scene in seconds, bring my body back to life. Now, I say it this way because, by the way, Kris, the moment the impact happened, my chitta, my consciousness bolted. I was like, I don't need to be here at all. So I left. So they bring my body back to life. I'm in a stage 3 Glasgow coma. Now, let me tell you from an EMT perspective, literally there's a stage 1, which is death. Stage 2 isn't much better. In stage 3, they literally put their shoulders up literally and say, it's up to God now. There's nothing we can do. It's synonymous with death. You can look up stage 3 Glasgow coma. I had a DAI brain trauma, a diffuse axonal injury. It's the worst brain trauma known to science. I'm in a coma for 9 days. During those entire 9 Earth days, I'm on the other side, moved in the portal, experiencing complete connection, complete peace, complete spiritual union with something that's divine. And I woke up on the 9th day, by the way, as a numerologist, that's a profound number for this particular thing. It's an end of a cycle. And I woke up on my 9th day, and it was on my birthday.
Wow.
So now we get these handful of little miracles. And of course, later on, as I'm suffering for many years from all this, I'm saying to this these Akashic agents, hey, if you could put a pastor in one corner and a paramedic on the other and make me wake up on my birthday, can you just have the truck miss me? Couldn't you just couldn't you just make it miss me? Wouldn't that have been easier for all of us?
That wasn't your soul contract, though. That's not
No.
what you were supposed to go through.
That's right. And so the visit within the portal, my time within the portal, my presence within the portal was not an event that took place while I was in a coma. It continued to go on. So every time I would go to sleep in the material world, I was totally conscious and aware within the portal.
Wow.
It was like, so when I would fall asleep in the material world, it was kind of like I was already joining a classroom, already in session. I was already in a conversation. I wasn't like coming in and then going, oh, hi, nice to see you again, to the Akashic agents. It was like, it was an ongoing thing and I was just joining it. So I was apparently already there. And then my conscience was catching up with it. So this was so intense for the first 4 years that I was very confused about living in the material world. It was hard for me to differentiate between where I was at any given time. Am I am I within the portal? Am I in my living room? Where am I right now? So it was very hard to reorient back and forth. Keep in mind that when I woke up from my coma, okay, my son and my partner of 10 years were both met in the hospital by 2 doctors and a priest. That's not a good sign. They were told, if he ever wakes up, which by the way, he won't, but if he does, they're trying to ease them into this. If he ever wakes up, he'll never be able to take care of himself. He's likely going to be vegetative. He'll never be able to walk. And when I woke up, I could not walk. I could not talk. And I don't mean couldn't walk because I was damaged. My physical injuries were relatively minimal. I couldn't walk because I did not know how. My entire identity and memory was deleted.
Wow.
I do not. So it's not like I didn't remember how to walk. It's like I never learned.
Yeah. Did you know who you were?
I had no idea who I was.
Wow.
The nurse stood in front of me and said in a very condescending way, do you know who this is? To my partner of 10 years, beautiful woman that I was with for 10 years. And I hated the nurse. I felt so while I didn't know who I was, I still knew when I was being condescended to, and I really was irritated. And so I did not know who she was. And so I just said the Queen, because I thought I was in England. Now keep in mind,
the Queen.
The reason I thought I was in England, I said to my loved ones, I said, how do you guys get to England so fast? They thought I was delusional. This is because while I'm within the portal, I'm having multiple past life regressions, and I'm confused which lifetime I'm in. The 3 of us all knew each other in England in our last lifetime, and I was like, why do you think you're Jeanette or Brandon in this lifetime? Why don't you see that you're more than this? I was confused. I could not make clear sense of see the lines between past life and this life. They were all modeled together.
Yeah. Were your son and your partner in all of the past lives you saw while you were on the other side, or in the portal, as you call it?
No. So here's what happens when I'm within the portal.
Yeah, I want to hear all that too. So much I want to hear.
The life review is a standard feature of NDE. People have their life pass before their eyes. But I was offered by the Akashic agents. I told you what I call them as Akashic agents, right?
Right, you did.
Okay, I did. Okay. So I was offered by the Akashic agents if I wanted to have multiple past life reviews, not just life review. And I said, yes, but I only want life reviews of lifetimes that are relevant to my spiritual journey, not regular ones.
Okay.
Only so I can learn what I did right and what I did wrong in my progress in my soul's journey.
Yeah.
And they said, granted. And so what was given to me when I was in the coma state is a cinema of lifetimes over thousands of years, condensed like an instant download into my consciousness. So I saw hundreds of lifetimes over thousands of years that were relevant to my soul's journey, revealing deep secrets and mysteries to me that I was able to recover and retain later. So my past life. So again, this is why when I woke up from the coma, I was very confused as to where I was. And this went on for 4 years. I was often not sure. I mean, I remember driving my car and I was in the Akash. I was within the portal consciously. My phone rings and I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing driving? Where am I going in my car? Like, where am I going? I don't even know why I'm in the car. And I think, which can happen. We can all forget where we're somewhere, right?
Sure.
But I took the Bluetooth, and my son goes, hey, I land at 12:45. Oh, that's right. I'm going to pick my son up at the airport.
Wow.
So
you're in and out. Can I ask you a question really quick? When you were looking at the past, when you were shown those past lives, were they always on Earth? Were you always a human, or were you other places as other beings?
Here's what was revealed to me is that the reason people will think they were on different planet systems in past lives is because this planet has gone through so many incarnations, so it's already taken on so many different forms and so many. And so, yeah, the billions of years old that this is this version, it also reincarnates. And so, our lifetimes, what we remember from other planets, what was revealed to me is your eternity. Eternally, you take multiple lifetimes on one planet system. But it changes, and so what you think is another planet is just from a whole different epoch and era from the last time the Earth was before reincarnated itself.
Interesting.
So all the souls from any one planet are repeat lifetimes on that planet from different identities. So I was in different eras, and so yes, some of them were prehistory, and I don't just mean prehistoric. I mean in our last incarnation. So yes. I'm talking about timing and cities and civilizations that not only didn't exist and that we don't know them, like this was long before this planet ever evolved to what it is now. So it goes through the Pralaya stage and the Mahapralaya stage. The Pralaya stage is when the Earth goes dormant and all life dies, and it does that for a timeless amount of time, then it comes back.
Wow.
So there's a bit of both.
That's really fascinating. I've never heard that before.
But primarily, I only wanted to see and asked to see lifetimes within this string of lifetimes where I could see my soul's journey so I could complete my soul's journey to spiritual divinity, because I don't want to keep coming back to end the process of reincarnation. So again, I was shown a history of these things for thousands of years, and I was able to see the inception of many of our religions and many of our spiritual paths, where they came from, because I was there for some of them, and so I was able to witness this.
So what happens once you reach that highest state of spirituality that you were just talking about, that you don't have to come back? What's the ultimate, what happens there?
Let's give it a name.
Yeah.
Let's call it spiritual realization with a capital S and a capital R.
Okay.
So there's enlightenment that the Buddha taught, which is a form of liberation, where basically your soul is liberated from material phenomena forever when you attain enlightenment that the Buddha teaches. This is the path of Advait, okay, which is non-dualism, right? Now, in this instance, what happens is when you die, your consciousness is terminated. So your soul is, of course, eternal, and it cannot be created nor destroyed. And so your soul merges with the everything. But your consciousness and your body is done. You've completed your journey. So the other option is called Vait. So it's Advait and Vait. Is always a negated prefix for Sanskrit words. So means like non. So Advait is non-dualism, is dualism, and Vait is dualism, excuse me. Again, I'm getting mixed up. So what I want, the other path is you can either become one with everything, which is basically like being one with nothing, or you can be one with the divine source itself, which has personality and mind and is love. And you get to retain your awareness. I don't know about you, but I want that.
Yeah, no. So I've always heard that that's the ultimate, where you merge back with source, with God, and it's just pure love, and you retain all the memories. But go ahead.
Yeah, but you have to retain your consciousness to do that, because again, the Buddhist path, the Buddhist path of monism is that you become one with everything, but your consciousness terminates. And again, the Buddhists, and same with the acharyas in the Advait paths within yoga. They teach the same thing, that when your life ends, your consciousness ends. So you can't have awareness of it. So you're in that perfect beauty and spirituality, but you have no awareness of it.
You're not aware of it.
Because you have no way to perceive it, because you have no mind anymore.
Sure.
Now, the other option that the Sanskrit texts teach is, or you can attain spiritual union and keep your conscious. Your conscious becomes divinized.
Yeah.
So instead of having a material mind, it becomes divinized because your regular conscious cannot handle the divinity. So you become divinized. Then you become one with the divine power, and you get to experience and be aware of it as well.
Yeah. Why would anyone choose the other route?
They don't know any better.
Okay.
And, you know, it's like Buddhists look at the Buddha as a person that became enlightened. Sanatana Dharmists, Hindus, look at the Buddha and say, no, he's an avatar. He came on a mission to teach the Advaita path of monism. So, because many people were not accepting the religious and the spiritual to begin with, they were all rejecting it. It was a very toxic time, so much like now, many other times in history. So there are many sages. Shankaracharya also taught the Advaita path, but he taught it with God. So if you think about it, Buddhism is an agnostic path. It has nothing to do with spirituality and God.
That's true. Yeah.
Right. And Shankaracharya, which was virtually a contemporary of his, virtually pretty close, he taught the exact same thing: the eight stages of yoga, the eight paths of the Buddha, and the 8 stages of yoga to attain union. And again, same thing. The difference is that the consciousness terminates. Yeah. And so, to me personally, I think the highest form, the ultimate journey, would be to attain divine love, awareness, and to exist in that forever. Yeah. No more reincarnating in the material world at all, to be one with and serve the divine love.
So let me ask you, the way that I've always been taught it and understood it is, Source kind of sent us off into these trillions of souls to go have experiences and learn lessons and climb this ladder essentially through these schools back to Source, back to God, right? So, if the ultimate is that we're getting back to God, let's just forget the other option where your consciousness goes away. Okay. Then do we ever recycle back out and start over again? Or is he just creating more souls to go do that? Or like, what's the cycle?
Okay.
As far as your understanding.
There's no, and again, what I'm sharing with you is what I've studied out throughout my life, the eternal truths, not my version, and also what I was confirmed and verified while I was within the portal and continue to be.
Yeah.
So there is no new souls because souls are infinite in number. There's an infinite and they're all eternal. So there's no beginning, there's no end. It's infinite and eternal. And once you attain realization with a capital R, spiritual realization, so there's enlightenment and then there's spiritual realization.
Right.
You can say spiritual enlightenment versus and spiritual enlightenment. Spiritual enlightenment is when you become one with that spiritual divine love, as we're talking about, right? And then you're done. You can't forget that. You can't forget divinity because you become one with it. So you're now perfected forever, and that's eternal. You're done in the material world. So it's not, you don't forget and go back. You can't forget it. You wouldn't forget it. You're divine. You become divine.
Okay, so what about the souls that are still in the material world? How did they get there? How did that begin? Do we know, or is that not?
Are you familiar with the concept of original sin in the Western religions?
A little bit.
Okay, the Adam and Eve thing.
Sure, but feel free to teach me.
The concept of original sin, what they turned it into, like, they become aware of their nudity and sex, and that's all evil and bad and blah 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 blah. Western religion, kind of like dogma, right?
Okay, yeah.
That's what they do, and God bless them. I mean, it came from something that was eternally true. And so the original sin concept comes from the fact that we're all in an eternal condition, which is incarnation. So it's not a beginning or an end. It's not like you began one day and then you can't end it, but you didn't begin one day. You've been doing this for eternity. Again, we can't process that concept. The fact that you have literally been alive and reincarnated, and you say, well, what was the first one? There is no first one. You've been doing it for eternity. There is no beginning. It's been going on forever.
It reminds me of the idea that like all time is happening simultaneously, right? Like past lives are actually parallel lives. It's all happening now.
Correct. Okay. Right. What was that? Was that movie? Yes, that's correct.
What movie? I want to watch the movie.
Interstellar.
Oh yeah.
Interstellar does a great job. I love Nolan. He's brilliant.
Yeah, he is.
Interstellar does a great job at just playing that. And many people in the theater, they don't even know what's going on. I'm like, as a mystic, I'm seeing this, and a physics hobbyist, I'm getting this on so many different levels.
Yeah.
So it is kind of all mashed and meshed up together, but at the same time, it's also experienced separately. You can't transcend time. You're caught in the here and now. You're eternal presence, right? Yet you also can. So it's only in the spiritual realm are things paradoxical. They are simultaneously the opposite of what they are. Simultaneously, we're here in the material world. It's either black or it's white. It's either hot or it's cold. It's something. Right. So it's twilight, but it's still a blend of these two things.
Duality, yeah.
That's right, duality. And so instead of a oneness, and so I forgot your question. I got lost in my own little kind of diatribe there.
I forgot my question too, because I was just so fascinated with everything you were saying. But we were talking about time. Time is happening at once, but you have to experience it separately.
Right. But here's the thing. Keep in mind. See, when you get to the eternal truths, where the emotions, because they're just so beautiful, and they're so, because they give us the eternal truth because they love us, because they're pure love. God is pure love. Yeah. And I will say she, because the love aspect of God, the divine love aspect to me is very feminine. And so keep in mind the Buddha's Four Noble Truths. Life is suffering. The cause of suffering is desiring. To end suffering, you must end desiring. You can do this in this lifetime. Same with all the other paths of yoga, the Ashtanga Yoga, which is the Eightfold Path. Every path teaches you this axiom, that you can do this in an instant. The sage Patanjali that wrote the Yoga Darshan about the Ashtanga Yoga, he said in the beginning, he begins this text with saying, I'm going to now explain to you the path of Ashtanga Yoga. The 8 paths you all know, going to yoga, so you know about Ashtanga Yoga. You're a yoga teacher. Right. So then he says, beware. Very few of you will ever attain enlightenment, spiritual realization through this process. It is so hard. And those of you who do, it will take many lifetimes to pull it off. And in the end, at the very end, when you get done with all the other 8 branches of the path of yoga, you have to do one more thing. Complete and total surrender of your heart, will, and mind to the God power. And he says, or you can just do bhakti. Anyway, and he goes on, but to explain it, and I'm like, what do you mean? Or wait, back up. Wait, where was that? What was that little shortcut? What was that about? What's that?
Yeah. Now, I'm gonna try that.
The point is, the Buddha teaches the same thing in the Eightfold Path. Go through all the Eightfold Paths and exercise in the stages of Buddhism, and you get to samadhi. Now, what happens in samadhi? You've attained nothingness within your consciousness. You have no desires, no will, nothing. And he says to you, and then you have to stop that too. Now, I have attained moments of samadhi in Buddhist, in kirtan, in Kundalini yoga. I've had, and I'm like, oh my God, and then I'm aware of it. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. There it goes.
Yes, you're aware of it. Yeah.
That's right, because you're aware, because you're like, wow, this is beautiful. That ends it. You can't have that. That's you. That's ego. And so the final stage the Buddha teaches, Shankaracharya in Advaita and Monism, all these teach you at the very end, so have one last thing to do. So when in Buddhism, again, you're focusing on the yantra, the candle flame, all these things to get your mind completely point focused, right, on one thing, and that's it. Nothing, everything else is gone. Then you gotta let the candle go. Then you gotta let that yantra go. Then you gotta let the mantra's got to. Whatever you're fusing, that has to go too. It would be completely no mind for true samadhi, right?
Yeah.
And so what they're teaching you is you can't do this. You're not capable. You're a stupid human in a stupid human body, and you're limited in your consciousness because you're not. The only thing that's divine about you is your soul, which is already divine, but your mind is not. And in your mind, if your mind is going to be divinized, it has to be graced. It has to be through the power of grace, which is God's power of love. And that has to be, and that can only be when you completely dissolve and let go of your ego and yourself and your desires and simply just want love. And that's it.
Yeah.
So only the God power can take that last stage with you. So or you can just do bhakti or you can just cut through all that. And again, you can do this in this lifetime simply by, you can skip all that and just surrender completely if you can do it.
And just surrender to love, right? Which is what
that's it. When you have complete surrender, then you have to do any of the stages. Look, the Eurasic saints, the enlightened masters, they don't do yoga. They don't do yoga. They don't meditate. They don't do anything because they're already there.
Yeah.
They don't do anything because they are already just constantly absorbed in them. So Ramakrishna Paramahansa, you familiar with the name? Ramakrishna Paramahansa, a great saint in the turn of the century. Look him up. You'll love him.
Okay.
He was, the path of yoga is basically in the U.S. and came to the West probably because of his two disciples, Yogananda and not Yogananda.
Oh.
Yeah, Vivekananda.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, he was his guru.
Okay.
Vivekananda. So at the end of Ramakrishna Paramahansa's life, he had brain cancer.
Okay.
And his disciples went to him and said, Master, you're one with the divine presence. You're one with your avatars. Why don't you just ask them to relieve you of all the suffering and pain? He said, why would I take my mind out of loving God for one moment for something so selfish and trivial?
I love that.
Right?
Wow.
Saint Francis was lying in a ditch after being beaten near to death by two robbers. And he's lying in a ditch. And he gets rescued because two passerbys heard him singing. And when they went to rescue him, he got mad at them because he was like, why are you interrupting me? I am singing to God. I am in love. What are you bothering me for? He was dying. He wasn't gravely. That's how absorbed he was in God's love.
Yeah.
So when we surrender to that level, when we get to that point, we don't need to do anything.
Yeah, you're just there. You're in that moment. That's
right. And so Ramakrishna Paramahansa, I evoke that often because as I get mired by and shackled by my own sorrows and my fears, I remind myself, I'm not dying of brain cancer. I've had some very, very serious things go on, but how dare I? How dare I do anything? So I try to take my mind out of that and remind myself, this is only temporary. It does not matter. This is one in a million of different lifetimes. You suffered in many of them. You've had great ones, and it doesn't matter because in the eternal concept, you won't even think about this. You won't even remember it.
I was just having that conversation with someone where they're like, oh, there's so much suffering in life. But it's like, if you stretch out the timelines and you look at all the lives connected, it tells a bigger story than that, right?
It does. It does. But Kris, keep in mind, you suffered in most of them. Once you become spiritually aware, the dark night of the soul is, keep in mind what St. John of the Cross was writing about with dark night of the soul. He's writing about when a human wakes up spiritually and realizes, oh my God, I am never going to find any true actual happiness in this world. It doesn't exist. And so the dark night is when they realize this is all bogus. I can't. I'm wasting my time. I have to live spiritually, and that's it. And even that, I'm in a dark night because I can't attain it right now. I can't live with it. I'm not with it, and I can't live without it. And so the multiple lifetimes that we do on this dark night. So there is this string of lifetimes, and yes, in the overall span of things, it's just one little bit of suffering. But overall, the bottom line is there's just one eternal truth. And that's God, and that's the spiritual power, and nothing else. That's the only true Dharma. The only true Dharma is spiritual Dharma. The Sanskrit text says, the Vedas teach us that the only true Dharma is spiritual Dharma. And so therefore, if you're not doing something spiritual, you're wasting your time, and you're going to continue to suffer. So even if I'm not suffering per se, as we conventionally know it, I'm very aware that I'm trapped in material phenomena, and I don't want to be.
Yeah, you're going to keep coming back, right?
That's right. And I don't want to come back.
Okay, so I have to ask you, you asked when you were in the portal during your coma, show me the lifetimes where I had spiritual growth, right? So I can see my spiritual journey. How are you doing? What kind of information did you get? Where are you in the journey? Were you happy with your growth?
Here's my own theory on what's revealed and what's disclosed to you. First of all, it's above your pay grade. You don't get to know that. And here's why.
Okay.
And I'm not telling you what a guru or teacher actually said to me. I'm telling you what I've had to kind of theorize on my own. So I want to make sure I will always qualify an eternal truth and my own version, my own perspective of these. So here's what my theory is, that my guru, that I sat at the feet of many times throughout this lifetime. I mean, literally, he was a human he was not human, but he was a spiritual being on this, but he was an avatar. And so I was with him many times. And many people would ask him, so where am I on my path? Where am I on my journey, my soul's journey? I mean, I'd like to know where and you just blow it off, okay? Because you can't know that, because one of two things is going to happen. If you see yourself as doing really well, you're going to get prideful, you're going to ego, and you're going to blow it. All right.
Fair
You're
enough.
going to get lazy because you're going to be like, oh, cool, I'm doing really well.
I can coast, yeah.
That's right. So so they're trying to protect you from yourself. Or you're going to be like, oh my God, I'm like so far away. Like, what's the point?
Yeah, that makes sense. That's fair.
You're never going to be like, okay, cool. You're never just going to be content. You're either going to develop ego or sorrow, and either both of those work against you.
But do you think that we find out in between lifetimes where we're at? Because we have to.
Oh, you absolutely do.
Right, because we have to plan out our next lifetime and what lessons we want to learn. Okay.
So I also, in my death experience, had life preview.
Ah, so you got this life preview or other lives?
Both.
Okay.
It was shown and it isn't like there's a difference between hard destinies and soft destinies.
Okay.
Soft destinies are things you can change.
Sure.
Hard destinies, life, death, birth, some
things
kind of
in your
calamity.
full contract, right?
Winning the lottery and getting cancer are hard destinies.
Sure.
Okay. Everything else, other things may be soft destinies. And so what is revealed with a life preview is it wasn't just for this lifetime. I was given a preview of what I could expect that's coming up so I could learn how to deal with it. And I was also given a brief preview on many different lives that I could have in the future based on what I did in this lifetime. So it's kind of like the Ghost of Christmas Future.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Dickens was pretty brilliant, and I'm not a fan of his work actually, but he was actually way ahead of his time.
I mean, that is a phenomenal story.
It is. And so the Ghost of Christmas Future literally is showing you what you can do if you don't straighten your way. And so the life preview, many people in many NDEers, you've probably met with many of them, haven't you?
Mm-hmm. And I've gone down those rabbit holes, yeah.
That's right. And so the thing is, NDE, most of them will tell you the life preview, the life review, right?
Right.
But very few will tell you the life preview. The thing is, what was revealed to me is that we all experience it. Whether when you're within the portal, when you're in between life and death, you experience both no matter what. It's a staple standard part of the procedure. But most people don't retain life preview. I retained mine because I did a lot of conscious work before I went into this thing. I was already a mystic and qualified in many areas. Right. And so my life preview, and again, I don't know if this was special, I don't know if I was offered something, I don't remember that. All I know is that I saw a life preview of what I was about to endure, and I was terrified because I saw the loss I was going to experience. This book is beautiful, and it's a triumph over tragedy. But Kris, it's also, as life is, some of the tragedies in here are undeniably just shocking and devastating and very emotional. And the triumphs are proportionate. And so I was given this view before I was released back to my body, which was laying in a hospital bed. And I was asking the Akashic agents, how am I going to deal with this? Like, I don't want to deal with that. What am I going to do? Like, I'm not going to be able to get along. I'm not going to be able to connect with them. I'm not going to remember anything. I don't even know who I am. How am I going to cope with this? How's this going to help me in my soul's journey? But I'm going to be so confused. And then I was also given like preview of many different future lifetimes based on the decisions I made in this one, whether I went back to a material life or whether I went back to a spiritual life. So as we see with the Dickens story with Ebenezer Scrooge, that he's shown that this is what's going to happen if you stay a bad man. Then he goes back and says, you know what? I'm going to change right this instant. You can change your karma when they're soft destinies. And so I was already on a spiritual path. So it wasn't for me an option whether I was going to go back to being spiritual or not. I don't know. I was just, it's not that I learned new things within the portal. It's that the things I already knew and the things that I learned were verified. And I was given absolute evidence of them. And it has deepened what I knew and what I was already doing spiritually. Deepened on levels that to this day continue to expand.
So what's one thing that you had believed that was affirmed while you were in the portal?
Well, again, being able to learn from a Rasic saint, enlightened guru for many, many years, I became a devotee to an enlightened master and again, I'm not talking about something that exists in the celestial space within my mind. I'm saying like literally for somebody that, his picture's on the wall over here, okay? Yeah. And so studying all my life, all the eternal truths, I accepted all these to be true, so I already had this massive amount of knowledge of it. And so, again, what was verified is that you are an eternal soul. You're trapped in material phenomena. The only way out is through true surrender. To be a spiritual person, not a human. Don't make it a side feature of your lifetime. Make it the only thing that matters. And so continue. It wasn't about don't do this and start that like Ebenezer Scrooge. For me, it was continue to do this and do it wholeheartedly and just do not stop. Just continue. And it was kind of like a little pat saying, you're doing well, but just keep it up, keep it going. And so the affirmation of this, and what I guess the message for me and for everyone is, don't give up. Don't be mindless of your spiritual life. It's the only thing that matters. Your body comes and goes, it dies and it gets reborn, but your soul is eternal. And this, what you have to feed is your soul. And this is what I'm trying to do with my work, my books. I mean, I have, I think, 8 books now. This is the whole thing. This is broken down into 4 books. So the Cosmic Consciousness series of books, here's one on tarot. And you can see it's a very thin book and teaches you how to use it. And again, Kabbalah's Tree of Life, Cosmic Consciousness, the Path of Yoga. And what these do is they don't just teach you what they are. Tarot is not a form of divination. It is a system for spiritual illumination. And people don't know that. Many people don't know that. And I've known that since I was young. A tarot deck is created as a pictorial imagery of the Tree of Life, of Kabbalah's Tree of Life, and it is a way to teach you how to transcend from materialness to spirituality. And so the message is simple for all of us. Don't stop and don't give up. And no matter what is going on in your material life, continue to reshape that and reframe that into spiritual context, because it's all that matters. The only true dharma is spiritual dharma.
Yeah. And you always have a choice, right? You can always choose to become more awakened when adversity happens, more conscious, see the spiritual side of it, or you can go less awakened and less conscious, right? You can fall into ego traps.
Another great point, and thank you for bringing that up, because I might have forgotten it, and I would have. And so I think that's critical. People think that when they have a spiritual awakening, they're never going to go back to sleep. And let me tell you, as a teacher and a healer myself, I see it all the time. People that when I would help people kind of get that spiritual awakening going, and I'm thinking, great, my job, again, as an addiction counselor, like, well, they hit their rock bottom. I guess my job is done. They're good. People that hit rock bottom can still use drugs again and have their lives unfold. And people that become spiritually aware often fall back to sleep. And this book tells you a story of my soulmate that did just that. And I'm like, how can you possibly not remember? How can you possibly lose sight of and lose the significance of what's going on with you on a spiritual and soulful level? How can you be, but people do it all the time. And here's why. Because it's a defense mechanism. Because as you know, Kris, spiritual life is hard. It ain't all beauty, kumbaya, yoga, and organic food, is it? No,
It's not.
It's a dark night of the soul, and it challenges you and tests you, and it will take you to places you've never been before. And it's challenging. And many people are like, you know what? I don't want to deal with that. And I don't blame them. A lot of times I don't either. But our choice is to either deal with it now or deal with it in future lifetimes, and again and again and again and again. And so, unfortunately, I see people go back to sleep all the time. And what I'm reminding them always is, don't just be spiritually awake. Continue to work with it and sustain it. You can't just go to the gym once and be fit. You've got to continue to go to the gym and eat right to stay healthy, right? So that's why I look at myself as more of a spiritual. I look at myself as a spiritual fitness trainer. I'm here to help. I'm like your coach. I'm in there like getting there and practicing. Here's the knowledge and here's the practice, but you got to do the work, you know?
Yeah.
And so my guru did for me. He said, here's the knowledge, here's the truth. And if you do the work, because I'm an enlightened master, I'm going to also grace you with the results.
Yeah.
And so I can't grace you with the results. All I really can do is teach them the path. But when you align yourself with a spiritual force, like an enlightened master, present or not present, well, then they impart grace upon you. And the grace is that you get the results of it. And again, we're not talking about happiness, kumbaya, and joy, and whistles, and happy. It's simply, I would call it the difference between happiness and fulfillment. Which do you want, happiness or fulfillment?
I love that. Yeah, that's great. My gosh, I feel like I could talk to you for hours. There's still so much I want to know about, like how you recovered from your NDE and all these things, but we're already at an hour, and I'm just so grateful that you spent this time with me. So thank you for imparting so much wisdom. I learned so much. tell people what you're working on now, how they can find you. I'm sure a lot of listeners want to come work with you now.
That'd be great. Withintheportal.com. Real simple. Here's the book.
Okay.
Withintheportal.com. On the website, I have, so tomorrow, for example, I'm giving the free classes, and it's online, and some people come in person where I'm at in California. And so we have free classes. I do readings. Those people usually buy. I'm also, by the way, this is brand new. So you're the first person, the first podcast. You're the groundbreaker. You're the innovator here. So the book is 4 books. It's 4 acts. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, Act 4. Act 1 is for free on my website right now in download ebook.
Cool. Very cool.
So you can get it for free. You just go to the landing page. It's right there. Scroll down. It'll tell you right there. Just click on it. It says $0. So it's for free. So I can't give the print ones away because I got to pay for those. Somebody's got to pay to print them in between covers. But the ebook, Act 1, is for free right now.
What an amazing gift. So everyone needs to jump on that if you're listening right now.
I hope so.
Thank you so much. Is there social media or anything that you want anyone to know?
Yeah, so within the portal, there's a YouTube channel, there's a Facebook group, etc. And so again, I'm not always like right on top of all that. So there's within the portal is the brand now.
Everything.
This little symbol, which is part of my tattoo that's on my arm, which was before this ever came out. This is what I kept seeing in a vision. And so the events, the classes, the community that we're forming, that's what we're doing, is creating a spiritual community for people that are in the dark night of the soul and trying to find their way and put these knowledges to practice. So the website's the best place to go. And yes, the YouTube channel has a bunch of videos that are getting a lot of views. And I also do some of these podcasts too. So I definitely recommend the YouTube channel. Some great stuff over there.
Okay, amazing. So I'll also have those
links. Excuse me, I'm sorry. So you might sometimes have to use within the portal with Krishnanand.
Okay. So everyone take note. And I'm going to have the links in the show notes. So if you're driving or walking around listening to this, you'll be able to come back. So thank you so much, Krishnanand, for coming. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much for everyone listening. Be sure to like, share, subscribe. Check out my book, Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality. And I will see you all next time. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
Thanks for inviting me. Thanks, everybody.